Score one for the little guy. With most of the major airlines cutting back, hemorrhaging cash, or even going bankrupt, the new guy on the block, JetBlue, keeps turning a profit and expanding. Just last week, this 3-year-old airline announced plans to buy billions of dollars of new airplanes so it can ratchet up the competition with the bigger companies. The only fear on Wall Street is that JetBlue may be expanding too fast. But David Neeleman doesn't think so. As we first reported last fall, he's the boss at JetBlue, and he does seem to know how to run an airline. But David Neeleman is an unlikely CEO, a restless multimillionaire who admits that because of a learning disability, he has the attention span of a gnat and has trouble concentrating long enough to even read a book. But Neeleman has surprisingly strong opinions about everything from airline security to airline service. And when he talks, lots of people listen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to introduce myself. I'm David Neeleman. I'm the CEO of JetBlue.
When's the last time you saw the head of an airline show up on one of his flights and not only talk to his passengers, but treat them like people?
I hope you notice that we're trying a little harder than those other airlines to treat our customers well.
Neeleman says that is the only chance airlines have to survive. With the survival of the big airlines being severely tested on Wall Street, JetBlue stock soared, then dropped, but is now holding its own. Are you making money?
We are. Yes, we are.
Everybody in the world knows that it's a desperate time for the airlines. U.S. Air goes into bankruptcy. American Airlines lays off all kinds of people. United's in big trouble.
People are still flying today. It's not like we stopped flying. If you can hold on to your customers and not make it a commodity business, this is a commodity business in the minds of most people. There's no loyalty amongst airlines.
All right. I appreciate your business.
Neeleman says the airlines have to make a personal connection with their passengers.
Thanks for your business.
He does that himself by flying his airline at least once a week, checking in with customers and checking up on his crews. Neeleman thinks most airlines are more like freight trains or cattle cars. He wants to be different.
And just set out with a mission to really treat customers like customers.
Thanks.
Passengers like customers. I think people see passengers as an annoyance. Man, if we just didn't have these people, my job would be a lot easier. We realize that they pay our way every day.
The fares you pay to fly JetBlue are relatively low, but you get all-leather seats and live 24-channel satellite TV. That's been such a hit that David Neeleman bought the satellite company, which means other airlines will have to buy the service from him.
Like a chocolate chip cookie?
On JetBlue, the headsets are free, but the CEO says forget about getting a sandwich, even on transcontinental flights.
Animal crackers, and there's biscottis, we have blue chips. They're all kosher.
Those biscotti help keep expenses down, and so does flying just one kind of airplane, European Airbus A320s. That reduces scheduling and maintenance problems and is more efficient.
I'd like to be in the exit row.
So is the reservation system.
You going to Rochester?
Yeah.
You're going like an hour.
That's why we come early, to get the seats.
Most tickets are purchased over the internet, and the airline offers e-tickets only. David Neeleman, who is driven, if not obsessed, with reducing costs, says paper tickets are a thing of the past.
You'll see them in the Smithsonian, and that's the only place you'll see a ticket. You know, being ticketless, you don't need to take anything to the airport with you. You can just show up and give them a number.
JetBlue does not try to fly everywhere and has so far concentrated service in the Northeast, the West Coast, and Florida. David Neeleman's strategy when he starts to make money on a route is to add flights rather than raise prices. How fast is JetBlue growing?
Well, we're adding about a plane a month.
By comparison, the major airlines each have hundreds of planes. They've started to move some of them and slash fares to cities where JetBlue is making money. But if Goliath is flexing his muscles, this is one David who's not afraid to fight back, especially in the New York-Florida market, where not long ago he had just 3 flights a day. What's to keep the bigger airlines from just squashing you like a bug?
Well, we're the biggest airline in the market today. When we have our...
on that route?
well, on all routes to Florida. So it's not like a little bug now that the elephants are going to come squash on, because we actually have the market. And the reason we have the market is because we have repeat customers, because we give them a fair deal, we give them a good experience, and then they come back and they fly us again.
David Neeleman was still in his 20s when he started his first small airline, Morris Air, out west. He sold that to Southwest Airlines and made himself $20 million. He tried to work for Southwest, but was too restless. He got fired and went off on his own to invent an electronic ticketing system, which he then sold to Hewlett-Packard. You weren't born to money.
No.
Net worth is what, $150 million?
Oh, you know, probably a little more than that.
But Neeleman, who is married and has 9 children, says money is not what drives him. He draws a modest CEO salary, $200,000. He says his only reason for moving to a wealthy Connecticut suburb outside New York, the town has a Mormon church. Neeleman was a Mormon missionary in Brazil when he was a teenager.
I always ask the question, how much is too much? You know, and then is all that money going to go to your kids and grandkids, and you're going to create a generation of deadbeats that don't know how to, you know, earn their own money and go to college and know what it's like to make it on their own? So what are we working on today here?
But Neeleman says there was a time when he doubted whether he could make it on his own because of a learning disability that took him years to come to terms with.
You know, I discovered when I was a young man that I had attention deficit disorder, and you know, it has some positive things with it, with creativity and other things, but there's kind of this dark side in that you know, you're completely disorganized. Being able to just sit down and read a book with my kids and work with them on their homework is drudgery to me.
Were you afraid that you wouldn't be able to make a living?
Absolutely. I was mortified. I mean, I felt like I was a fraud. I felt like that people think that I'm this sharp guy and that I'm fairly articulate, and but man, wait till they have me write a memo or something.
You worried whether anybody would hire a guy like you, so you decided you'll just start your own companies and hire yourself.
Yeah, that's the way it's worked out.
And you can hire people to do all that spelling and write those memos.
I've got a lot of Ivy League MBAs and law degrees working for me now. How's it going?
That may be so, but you won't find any union members working for David Neeleman. He says he takes care of his people, and they don't need a shop steward. That may sound paternalistic.
How are those steel-toed boots?
They're great actually.
Are they pretty comfortable?
But it helps Neeleman keep his costs down.
You gonna take the newspaper, or do you want me to take that one for you?
If the CEO can help clean up the airplane, so can everyone else, even the pilots. After they land the plane, they emerge from the cockpit to pick up the trash. And after a flight to Buffalo, it was the JetBlue manager who came on board with her vacuum cleaner.
Well, the next thing I know, you'll be telling me you helped to load and unload the baggage.
I do that, not a lot, not every single week, but I'm out there.
Well, I've talked to people at other airlines. They're admiring of some things, but they use phrases like, well, you have to understand, Dan, it's an El Cheapo airline. You say what to that?
Well, come fly us. You know, El Cheapo means that, you know, it was always the model that if you wanted to start a new airline, then you'd go find the cast-off airplanes. They've got them all parked in the desert. So these new airlines would go get those out of the desert. They'd blow the sand out of them, you know, hire people and say, look, we don't have a lot of capital, so we're not going to train you all that well. And then we're going to throw those planes into the sky. Well, it's different with JetBlue. People feel different. They don't feel like they're flying on a startup new airline.
Thanks for playing with us.
But because he is a startup, Neeleman knows he's vulnerable, and he doesn't like it one bit when the bigger airlines go begging in Washington looking for bailouts and loan guarantees.
You should let the invisible hand of the economy take its natural course, because I think it hurts everybody when winners and losers are picked.
Neeleman says the federal government should help by picking up more of the new costs for airport security, and he thinks all the airlines have to get smarter and more realistic about security procedures.
What's the biggest change coming in terms of airport security?
Well, you know, I think the biggest change is that we're looking for needles in a haystack, and we're looking a lot of hay. You know, let's let the retired Queens school teachers you know, 70 years old going to Florida. Let's leave them alone, and we're going to be much more effective identifying those people that we have a concern with.
Well, you're not talking about profiling, racial profiling.
No, we're not. We're not. But we need to know who you are, and we need to know where you've come from, and we need to be comfortable with that. And you know, racial profiling's a dirty word in society, but you know. Did the horrible events of September 11th.
We reminded Nealman that Transportation Secretary Mineta is personally opposed to profiling.
Well, you know, he's not running JetBlue. He's our Secretary of Transportation, and we respect him, but we have to make the decisions as we run our airline within the law.
As a security measure, JetBlue was the first airline to install cameras in its planes so that pilots, from behind their locked titanium-bolted doors, could see what was happening in the passenger cabins. But David Nealman disagrees with President Bush and congressional leaders about giving pilots guns.
Now, I know it's an emotional issue with the public, but when you have the cockpit door thing taken care of, then there's no need you don't need to arm pilots.
I understand your position, I understand your argument, but I talk to a lot of people who say, look, I'm looking for Clint Eastwood up in the cockpit with a gun, because if we'd have had that on September 11, 2001, we wouldn't have 3,000 people dead down here in Lower Manhattan.
If you had fortified cockpit doors and you had the feeling that you don't let anyone through that door, you wouldn't have 3,000 people dead.
But you're opposed, unalterably opposed.
Yeah, I'm totally opposed.
As you probably gathered by now, David Nealman is one chief executive who's not afraid to say what he thinks. And these days, lots of people are impressed. But he knows rough landings could be coming. For now, his employees, with fairly generous stock options and profit sharing, seem content not to have a union. That could change. Nealman's brand new planes will one day need more costly maintenance. And Nealman keeps telling himself and his employees that the competition will get even more brutal.
What you're doing is just phenomenally important to the success of JetBlue going forward. Just know that it is you know, nasty out there. And
there's this school of thought that says it'll be a rocket ride up, flame out. 5 years from now, you're not going to hear about him or his airline.
JetBlue has been put together like no airline has ever been put together before. It has the most capital. It has the best product. So now the question is, can you continue it? And that's what worries me. That's what keeps me up at night. How can we continue what we've started?